it's David Ship from coachingconstruction.com, and thanks ever so much for signing up to this free video training. Today I'd like to share with you a management model that can help you and your managers get the best out of their staff for the benefit of them, but also, maybe more importantly, the company or business they work for. The model will also explain how to improve staff's performance to a point at which you can trust them to do everything to your standard. Wouldn't it be nice to share some of your workload to people that can take on responsibility? Well, this video will explain that. From the training, you'll also understand and become aware of one of the biggest reasons why you become frustrated with other managers and how you can prevent repeating the same behaviour towards your staff. This was certainly one of the biggest learnings I had when I was managing teams on construction sites. It's a bit cold out here, so let's go inside and start the training. The model we will be looking at today is based on the topic of situational leadership theory. This was developed by two American gentlemen called Paul Hersey and Ken Blanchard. This topic has been around for 30 or more years, but what I'd like to do in this training is discuss it specifically how it relates to managers and supervisors in the construction industry. Personally, when I came across this information, it explained so much, especially when I was managing people and facing resistance. It also helped to explain why I felt frustrated when I was being managed and supervised by others. For you to get the most out of this training, I'll be asking you questions throughout this video. Obviously, I can't hear your answers, but I really encourage you to write the answers down and think about them. Why not stop the video now, grab a pen and paper, and maybe a drink if you haven't done already. We'll be using the computer screen throughout the training, so let's turn that on now.
The first question we need to look at is how do you get your staff to do the things you want them to do? When we ask this question in trainings, we get a mix of replies from I tell them, I ask them, I show them, or even I leave them to it. With this answer, we usually have discussions about it depends who you are getting to do the job. What we are starting to look at here is the style of management you are choosing to use. Your management style is the behaviour you show when you attempt to influence your staff. This behaviour has been developed over time and is what staff learn to recognise in you. Others can expect and can even predict certain kinds of behaviour from you. Think about your own line manager or supervisor now and think about how they manage you and your colleagues. As you think about them, we are going to discuss two types of behaviour that are central to the concept of management style. And I'm going to add these to a diagram on the screen. The first type of behaviour is directive behaviour. What does directive behaviour look like to you? There are many things we can describe, but to keep it simple, it's clearly telling people. So it's what to do, how to do it, where to do it, when to do it, and so on. It's also made up of closely supervising their performance. Understandably, the amount or intensity of directive behaviour could vary, so to demonstrate this, we will put a scale of low to high on the bottom of the diagram. If you thought about it now, you could probably rank all your managers you have ever had on this scale. The second type of behaviour is supportive behaviour. What do we mean by supportive behaviour? How would you demonstrate it? Again, lots of characteristics of this, but to keep it simple, we can look at it being listening to people, providing support and encouragement for their efforts, facilitating their involvement in problem solving and decision making. As with the directive behaviour, the degree of supportive behaviour can also vary. Someone you know may listen or encourage a lot, some may do the opposite. As before, we will be having a low to high scale. A manager's style will usually involve a combination of directive behaviour and supportive behaviour. You'll notice on this diagram that there are 4 boxes. And what we're going to do is go through each one by one. These 4 boxes are going to help define the 4 management styles we will be looking at in this training. So in the bottom right hand corner, this box is high directive and low supportive. And this style of management is called directing. So what might this look like to you? This style of management is where a manager or supervisor is telling the member of staff everything that is to be done. The main indicator of this type of management style is that it is very one-way communication. The manager is doing all the talking or the directing. Can you relate to being managed like this? How did you feel when you were being directed? When might you use this style of management? The second type of management style, and in the top right hand corner, is high directive and high supportive. This style of management is called coaching. So, what might this management style look like? So this is where the direction is equal to before, but there is greater support from the manager or supervisor. The main difference between this style of management and the directing style of management below is that the conversation is now much more two-way. Much like a sports coach, the manager works with the member of staff and encourages their thoughts, ideas and opinions, but still remains directive in their approach. As we move to the left-hand side boxes of the model, the top left square of the diagram is low directive and high supportive. And this style of management is called supporting. As the name suggests, if you are managing in this type of style, you keep a high level of support, but you are being less directive. The key aspect of this style and the difference between supporting and coaching is the level of trust you have in an individual or team. A reduction in direction is balanced with the individual or team providing their own direction, but always having a manager or supervisor there for help when it might be needed. Finally, in the bottom left-hand corner, this is low directive and low supportive management. And this style of management is called delegating. As with the supporting style of management, the trust continues to grow to the point at which the team or individual are in a position to effectively carry out the work to your standard and time with less direction and support, and the process is delegated. What is important to note is that low direction and low support does not mean no direction and no support. The manager is still involved, but a lot less directive, because the individual or team know what they are doing, and less supportive because they don't require it. Delegation is when a manager or supervisor gives responsibility and authority, but still retains accountability. In summary, when we look at the four boxes, the four management styles, what box do you spend the most time managing people in? Also, think about what style do your managers use with you. The key to management styles is that there is no best style. There is only the most appropriate style for the maturity of the individual in question. Now, you're probably wondering what maturity means. Maturity in this case has nothing to do with age. It is defined as the willingness and ability to take responsibility, the capacity to set high but achievable aims, and the experience of an individual or a team in relation to a specific task. An individual or group is not mature or immature overall, only in terms of a specific task. For instance, an excavator driver may be very skilled and responsible in driving the excavator. That is, very mature. He may be less mature at keeping up with the paperwork. Successful managers and supervisors are those who change their behaviour according to the maturity of staff in that job. Effective managers and supervisors decrease their directive behaviour and increase their supportive behaviour as people get better at their job. When we look at maturity, it is made up of two elements. The first element is competence, and it's important to define what we mean by this. How would you determine whether someone was competent? Our judgment on whether someone is competent is based on their knowledge, their skills, and also their experience. The construction industry is full of competency qualifications, whether that is academic, for example MVQs to degrees, or the very thing that all of us need before stepping on site, for example a CSCS card. The competence of staff can be very varied and always changing. It can also be very subjective, as someone can simply make an opinion on competence, and is understandable why competency qualifications, certificates and cards are so important on construction sites, especially when health and safety is concerned. As I said at the start, maturity is made up of two aspects, the first being competence, which we have discussed. The second aspect is commitment. Commitment can be described with two words. The first is motivation, and the second is confidence. How would you describe motivation? Motivation is a very big subject that we often cover in a lot more detail in our live trainings, but we all have some understanding that you have to have a motivation to do anything. For example, you are motivated to do something because there is an outcome from doing whatever it is that is a benefit to you. We also know that your level of motivation can change depending on whatever is happening in your life inside and outside of work, and this is of course going to affect your commitment at work. Let's have a look at confidence. How would you describe confidence? Much like motivation, confidence is a feeling that you can do it. There are many ways to help people build their confidence, and it is very specific to the person involved. But one of the simplest ways, of course, is to compliment your members of staff. Positive words from a position of authority can be so powerful. How do you feel when you are complimented? How often do you compliment your staff? So to recap, maturity is nothing to do with age. It's about an individual or a team's stage of development with regards to a specific task. For example, some people can be mature in some tasks, but need help in others, and everyone is different. A core part of a manager or supervisor's role is to develop maturity and encourage individuals and teams to take on more responsibility. As we discussed, maturity is made up of two elements. The first is competence, and this can be measured by the knowledge someone has of the task, the skills and the ability they possess related to the task, and finally their experience. The second element of maturity is commitment. The commitment someone has towards a task in question and is measured by how motivated they are and their level of confidence. We can also look at competence is related to whether someone is able to do it, and commitment is related to whether the person wants to do it. If we take the ideas of competence and commitment and maturity and combine them with the management styles model, we can start to see why the styles have been arranged in the way they have, because they highlight the most suitable management style depending on the stage of development someone is at in a specific task. As we said earlier, the key to management styles is that there is no best style. There is only the most appropriate style for the maturity of the individual or the work group in question. To get the most out of this part of the training, you could think of an example where you personally have gone from knowing nothing to being completely self-sufficient in a task. For this example, it could be work-related or not. Learning to drive a car could be an example as most people can relate. Let's go through the model again and start with the bottom right-hand corner. When someone is completely new to a task, where is their competence and commitment? It's understandable that competence is low, as they are new to the task and they will be lacking knowledge and/or skills and/or experience. On the other hand, commitment is usually high if they can see a benefit or reward in doing the task. You will probably recognise there is a certain amount of excitement in learning and doing something new and fresh. The correct management style at this stage of development is directing. the person has to start somewhere. So in this style, a manager or supervisor will be briefing and explaining the purpose of the task. Orders will be given, and it is important to specify the aims and standards of the work so it is clear what is required of the person. As discussed earlier, the communication is very one-way from the manager or supervisor to the member of staff. After a certain amount of time, there will be some improvement in someone's competence, but usually commitment can be lower. There are many reasons for this and can often be related to their confidence and expectations of them being better at the task than they are. To understand the lower commitment, think about the growing pains you go through on a learning curve and how you start to think whether the benefit or reward you could see in the beginning is worth all the hard work. The correct management style in this instance is coaching. Here the manager or supervisor will be continuing to encourage the increase in knowledge, skills and experience, but by being more supportive and presenting ideas and asking for reaction. One of the major effects of this two-way communication is that the member of staff now feels included, which will increase their confidence and motivation. The dip in commitment is a key area managers and supervisors must monitor if they are to maintain and increase performance of their staff. In other trainings, coaching construction look at the topic of motivation and confidence to ensure staff do not drop too low in commitment with regards to a task that is integral to their role, as this can be a primary contributor to work-related stress, illness, staff absenteeism, and staff turnover if their needs are not being met. With continued coaching, the member of staff continues to work on the task and their competence and commitment will be increasing. To reach high commitment, motivation and confidence, the member of staff needs to know they can carry out the task on their own. A supporting style of management is best, where you can present the situation and decide actions together. The difference between this and coaching is that there is less direction, but the support still remains high. You also remain available and review progress. Finally, with continued support, competence and commitment is high. In this instance, a delegating style of management is best, whereby you agree the aims and let the team or individuals decide how to achieve it. Your support has also reduced, allowing the individual or team to get on with the task. There is still direction and support, but the least out of all the four styles. As we look at the management styles and the path to maturity, how much time does it take to get from the directing box, through coaching and supporting, to a position where we can actually delegate a task to an individual or team? It all depends on the individual or team and the complexity of the task. The secret is to always be monitoring individuals and teams' competence and commitment. A major part of managing and supervising is helping staff move through the path of maturity. Can you remember I asked you at the start of the training whether it would be nice to share some of your workload and have more time to focus on other tasks? Both of these can be achieved by developing your staff so you can trust they can do the task to your standards with little direction and support, freeing your time up. Does everyone want to reach the bottom left-hand corner, delegating in every task? Probably not. Some people do prefer to be given orders, but to find the people that share your workload, you must see who you can help develop and follow the order of management styles discussed. A manager must be careful not to delegate responsibility and/or increase supportive behavior too quickly. If this occurs, the individual or group may take advantage and view the leader as a soft touch. The manager must slowly encourage group maturity, using less directed behavior and more supportive behavior as they mature and become more willing and able to take responsibility. When an individual's performance is low on a specific task, do not expect drastic changes overnight. For desirable behavior to be obtained, a manager must immediately reward the slightest good sign. This goes along with increasing motivation and confidence. Continue this process as the individual's behavior comes closer and closer to your expectation of good performance. Remember, this is not a one-way street. Groups and individuals can go backwards for whatever reason. For example, a crisis at home, changes at work, new team member, illness, and so on. The manager and supervisor must adjust to meet the present maturity level of his group. One of our biggest top tips and one of the quickest ways to implement the information in this training is to write down the name of someone who reports to you, and next to it write a task they are responsible for. Then, write down your assessment of their competence, so their knowledge, skills and experience, and their commitment, so their motivation and confidence. Using this assessment, which of the 4 boxes would they be falling in? Thinking about the management style related to that box, is this how you are managing or supervising that specific individual when it comes to that specific task? What is the effect if someone is managed in a style that is not in line with their maturity? Let's look at an example. Bob has been in his company for 10 years and understands the company policy of how deliveries should be recorded, including all the correct paperwork that is required. Previous managers have always included him in any decision making and trust that everything will be done correctly. A new manager called Steve is appointed and becomes Bob's line manager. Steve is new to the company and has never worked with Bob previously. In Steve's first week, at the start of a day when a few deliveries are expected, Steve gives Bob orders of how he wants the deliveries to be taken and what paperwork is required to be completed. What management style is Steve using? If you answered directing, then you'd be correct. Let's look at this. What management style should Steve be using? Or what management style did previous managers of Bob use? If you answered delegating, then you'd be correct. Bob is at a stage of development, a stage of maturity of delegation, but he is being directed to. How would Bob feel? How would you feel in this instance? Can you relate to this scenario? What would happen if Steve continued to manage Bob this way? How would it affect his work? How would Bob have reacted if he was managed with a supporting or delegating style by Steve with regards to recording deliveries? In live trainings, coaching construction will often find that delegates often comment how frustrating it is when their competence or commitment is questioned or undermined. It is worth noting that Steve was new to the job and wasn't aware of Bob's stage of development when it came to deliveries. Using an unsuitable management style can have a negative impact on the member of staff. What could Steve have done in this situation? In our opinion, the best way to learn what people's stage of development is by using open questions. And by open questions, we mean questions that begin with why, where, what, how, when, and so on. These are questions that encourage discussion and are not closed questions whereby the person answering can just say yes or no. In Bob's example, to establish Bob's maturity in the task of deliveries, Steve could have asked Bob, "When it comes to deliveries, what do you do?" Bob's answer would quickly point to the most appropriate management style being chosen. When we look at the management styles, what do you think your preferred management style is? In our live trainings, managers and supervisors learn what their preferred management style is by looking at various scenarios and looking at how they individually would manage in the situation. Just imagine if more managers and supervisors knew about and learnt how to be flexible with their management style to not only get the best out of their members of staff, but think about how we could reduce all the frustration and stress that people experience when they are not being managed with the correct style.
So all that's left to say is a massive thank you for watching the video training, and we hope that you found it useful. If you have any feedback, good or bad, please post it under this video. We really would welcome it, as we want to give people that we work with, including you, the the best training experience we can. If you could think of anyone else who can benefit from this topic and this training, please send them to www.coachingconstruction.com and get them to sign up for the video just as you have done. If you would like to find out more about how coaching construction can help you, your managers and supervisors get work done through their staff more efficiently, effectively and safely, please drop us an email now at office@coachingconstruction.com and one of our team can arrange to talk to you over the phone at a most convenient time. We look forward to hearing from you, and remember, better skills, better communication means safer sites.